Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. And today I'm going to be doing a video on the Israel-Hamas conflict and its electoral impacts for 2024. Before we get started with the video, please make sure to hit the like button, subscribe, make sure to follow Twitter and join the Discord in the description down below. And let's get into this. And so pretty much guys, right now this happened today where a bunch of basically frat kids pretty much had to hold up the American flag because it had seriously been damaged in a Israel Hamas kind of protest or whatever. And so pretty much the GoFundMe has raised over 260,000 for the fraternity brothers. That's absolutely insane. This was the group P Kappa Phi. I'm pretty sure that's how you pronounce that. Correct me in the comment section if I am wrong. UNC Chancellor took down the Palestinian flag, reflew US flag. So that's pretty based, to be honest. At least there's some people with common sense out there. And so really what this is, enduring insults, middle fingers, and flying water bottles, about a dozen fraternity brothers stood their ground around the American flag at the University of North Carolina on Tuesday. So actually this was yesterday apparently. These people wanted to tear down the flag and were there to protect it. Pi Kappa Phi member Brendan Roseblum told News Nation on Valence, "Me and my friends did not allow that to happen." Pretty much it says the standoff when pro-Palestinian protesters raised the Palestinian flag on the pole. UNC Chandler Lee Roberts, accompanied by police officers, took it down, rehung the US flag, which was flying at half-staff in honor of the law enforcement officers killed Monday in Charlotte. And so pretty much, guys, this has become a pretty big issue, for the American public, to the point what's going on is that Biden is basically funding both sides. To be honest, this is kind of my own opinionated commentary based off, my electoral analysis and analysis on stuff that's happened. But pretty much, he's funded Iran. It's very clear that that's basically what's happened. He's given money to Iran. And so what happens is that all the terrorists, including Hamas, have been indirectly funded through that. But at the same time, Israel is also getting aid, through the United States government, similar to how Ukraine is. And so that's putting, Israel and Hamas, basically Biden is funding both sides of this war. And Donald Trump is one of the only presidents in 70 years who has not had a war, a major war take place. You did have that Iran general that was killed, but that was, in sort of a retaliation from a previous action that had taken place. And so really thinking about that, it does show the electoral prospects of 2024. In my opinion, I believe that Trump is the superior candidate in terms of foreign policy. He was able to kind of get the Middle East to be more peaceful. He kind of stood his ground with the Taliban. He got rid of ISIS effectively. He got rid of their, contemporary leader at the time pretty much. He was able to kind of calm down tensions with Iran. He calmed down tensions with Russia, North Carolina, China. And I think that really put the United States in a better path. And I feel like Biden's really reversed that. And on top of that, Biden is not even charismatic like Obama. Biden is just, weak, doesn't inspire any confidence, in the nation. You could see over here Biden's approval rating nationwide is -16. And if you look at foreign policy, he's actually down by -25 points. Is one of his most unpopular issues with Americans. He's down quite significantly, and it's to the point where he's been down in every single poll. There was one poll in May of last year he was tied. It used to not be as bad beforehand, even to the point where back, I believe this is probably 2020. Now thinking about it, it doesn't say the year, but I'm assuming it is, where his foreign policy was in the positive. So he's gone from having like a +20 approval rating in a foreign policy all the way down to like a -20 something, like basically the exact opposite. And so he is not looking really great, and the direction of the country is really not looking great right now. It's -40 on the electorate. And if you look at Congress, which is responsible for giving Ukraine aid and Israel aid and things like that, their approval rating is extremely low. They're actually more unpopular than the direction of the country is even going, which is crazy. They have a 74% disapproval rating. Only 20% of Americans approve of Congress. And if we go to favorability of political leaders, you'll see that, Biden is doing quite really bad, actually. He's -14.4%, while Trump is actually only -8 in a favorable and disfavorable rating. He's actually only -8. They have an aggregate here of Trump's approval rating as of recent, and it seems like Trump has kind of really made gains here These polls did have him quite significantly down, but Harvard Harris and Rasmussen reports actually have his approval rating up by quite a bit. He's actually in the positives there, and typically he's never up in his approval rating ever. And so the fact that he actually is up is a pretty big thing. And even Economist YouGov only has him down 9, and this is a lot lower than what was beforehand. His approval rating was a lot worse. So Biden is basically twice as disliked almost as Trump is, which is pretty insane to even think about. That his favorability is at 44%, with Biden being at 41%, and usually incumbent presidents tend to perform around their approval rating. So theoretically, if you were to do 44 minus 41.3, and not only that, also to the opposing candidate tends to kind of perform around their approval rating. So 2.8, if you look at that, plus 2.8, and if you look at the current aggregate with the third party candidates, as of right now, it is a 2.2 national environment as of right now. And so if we were to go to the model and kind of go based off of that, pretty much off of Biden's approval ratings overall. So let's say, he is basically up 2.2%. That is we'll do the math really quick, and we'll see here that currently he is up 6.7 points from the 2020 popular vote. And so if you were to apply that margin, Trump would be up pretty convincingly in the electoral college, to the point where he's actually going to be winning quite a couple of states, and he's actually even picking up Minnesota and not Minnesota, he's picking up New Mexico. So he basically gets all of the swing states. He loses Minnesota and Maine and New Hampshire by a close margin, and even gets Nebraska second and Maine. He gets Nebraska second and New Mexico into his column, putting him at 318 electoral votes to Joe Biden's 220. And not only that, if you think about it, Michigan has Dearborn, which is a city with a large, Arab American population. And so if Trump is basically guaranteed North Carolina and Georgia, and he's already guaranteed Nevada off the previous video, if he's able to win Michigan just due to the conflict, he already is guaranteed the presidency. This was actually CNN's forecast map from back then. So really, basically, if you look at the current, really that was like basically, if you look at that, it was 2.8. So let's say the popular vote ends up being like a 2.8 percentage point victory, which puts him up 6 points here. So that puts him at a 7.3 shift there in the popular vote. So let's say that is the case. Trump would be winning the electoral college fairly easily. So we're going to be going through the margins here. Trump would be up, in these states pretty easily. There wouldn't really be a problem here. He'd be up in all of these by safe margins. California, Oregon probably would be likely, maybe. You'd have a lot of these, be basically safe. New Jersey would probably be likely. New York would still be safe. Illinois likely. Colorado. And actually, I'm going to have to check Colorado in a second, because it may not even be a likely margin. It actually is. It is a 6-point victory. As you can see right here, is listed as a 6.2 percentage point victory for Biden. He wins Hawaii by 15 points. Alaska is also a very easy victory for the former president as well. Maine's second is an easy victory. Maine's first is also a safe victory. And Maine at this point should be flipping. I believe it is. Oh, no, they don't. So if you actually look at that, Minnesota and Maine at large are actually barely in the Democratic column, as well as New Hampshire. They're kind of all really, really tilt Republican. And if we go to North Carolina, for example, we'll see over here that it is an 11-point win, so that's already saved. Georgia and Arizona were likely margins of victory. Even Virginia is listed as a tilt margin, so there's a lot of tilt Biden states on the map as of right now. And if we look at Wisconsin, Michigan, all these states, he's doing pretty well. 7-point win in Michigan. If you look at Pennsylvania, 8.4% victory and 8.9 in Wisconsin, that puts him up there. Nevada is, I believe, a 10-point victory. So Nevada would actually be safe in this scenario, pretty much almost no matter what. And Oregon, if we were to go to that, it would be a 9-point victory for Biden as well. And if we go to Nebraska's second, it actually is barely, going to Donald Trump. He's actually winning it by only 2 points in the scenario. So that puts it in the lean column. And New Mexico in this scenario would be right under a point victory in the electoral college. So Trump in this scenario would be winning by 318 electoral votes to 220 electoral college votes. And this is based off, a cumulative, summary of, Biden's approval rating, a lot of issues, but definitely Israel-Hamas, he's hemorrhaging a lot of support from Democratic voters that would usually be voting for him. A lot of the kind of these Bernie bros, a lot of, people that would just be voting Democrat no matter what. But since Biden is really kind of posturing to both sides saying, hey, I'm, going to be funding Israel, but at the same time, I want a ceasefire in Palestine, it's really pissing off both sides, and he's going to hemorrhage a lot of, young voter support to the point where he probably could lose the election really easily, actually, and even put states like Minnesota, Virginia, New Hampshire, and Maine at large, New Mexico, even in jeopardy in that scenario. And so the final electoral map basically completely shaded in was 318 to 220 electoral votes. Is actually quite funny because this was my prediction like 2 weeks ago, and we'll be updating the predictions tomorrow for Friday, and we'll see how that goes. But if you guys did enjoy the video, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, make sure to follow the Twitter, and join the Discord in the description down below, and I will see you guys very, very soon.